Hey guys, we occasionally get asked about the gun situation in Japan, about gun laws in Japan. And recently on our other channel we made a video about the gun debate in America. So that's sort of triggered more questions about what it's like in Japan. So hence this video. Basically the reason we haven't addressed this already is because guns in Japan are a bit of a non-event. So by that I mean that, for example, in America, it's in the American Constitution that everybody is allowed to have a gun. And then some people have that right taken away from them because they're a criminal or because of some other reason that they shouldn't have a gun. So that law comes from the point of view that everybody has a right to have one, and occasionally some people have that right taken away. Whereas in Japan, the law is actually the opposite. The law says that nobody will have a gun or a sword. So most of the swords that martial artists use here don't have a sharp edge and don't have an iron blade. So they're for practice only. And there's some exceptions to that. But basically the law says nobody will have a gun, nobody will have a sword. And then they make exceptions to it. So it's the opposite of the American system. The American system says everybody can have a gun, and then the exception is that person and that person. In Japan, the rule says nobody can have a gun or a sword, and the exception is that person or that person. So the sword thing came into the laws during the Meiji period. So up until then, of course, lots of swords, but during the Meiji period they changed that so that people weren't allowed to carry swords anymore. So as far as guns, nobody has any chance at all of owning a handgun. Nobody has any chance at all of owning an assault rifle or an automatic rifle. It's just not going to happen. So they're all banned, totally banned. Nobody can own them. Anybody caught with a gun that doesn't have a license to have a gun goes to jail for 7 years. And no questions asked. Irrelevant of whether they've had a clean history up to land, irrelevant of anything else. If they have a gun in their possession and they're not supposed to, 7 years in jail. So the only guns that are allowed are shotguns and hunting rifles and air rifles. And if a person is going to own one of those, they have to have a reason to own one of those. So if they're a farmer or something like that and they have a reason to own one, and then, or a hunter, some sort of person that needs to have a gun to do that sort of stuff, and then they have to do a course, I think it's 2 days, a 2-day course followed by tests, physical tests and written tests, and then they have to go to a hospital and have mental and physical health checks, and they have to pass them, and then they have to, the police then, once they've done all that, the police then look into them, and that can involve checking with friends and family and co-workers and neighbours to ask what sort of person the person is. So if they go and ask your neighbours what you're like, and the neighbours say, they have a lot of domestic arguments, you could chance you get rejected. So really thorough, really thorough checks to confirm that that you're a safe person to have it and that you've got reason to have it. And I think the statistics, there's something like 120,000 guns in Japan, or maybe less now, something like that, 120,000 I think, and the numbers are going down. So the laws have always been strict, but then over the years they've got progressively more strict, and they're taking guns away. They're issuing less licenses, so they're giving people, so they're issuing less new licenses, and they're taking away licenses from older people who no longer need their guns, and they're reducing gun ownership even further. So it's always been low. It's always been low. The gun ownership here has always been very low. Not many people have had them, but they're reducing it more and more by not giving new licenses and not renewing old ones. So that, it's only left with the people that really need them. So I think it's less than 120,000 guns in the whole country of 127 million people. And then as far as gun-related deaths, there's about 2 a year. Some years there's none, or there's about 2 a year. And I think 2006, there was 22. deaths by guns. There was a bit of a battle between some Yakuza, or a bit of a war going on between some Yakuza, and most of the people who are shot by guns in Japan tend to be Yakuza shooting each other. They tend not to bother shooting other people. They tend just to shoot each other in their wars, you know. So, as far as more statistics, I'm sure some people will be interested in a lot more statistics, but I think it's always better that you guys get your statistics yourself, because anytime we quote statistics, we do tend to get challenged by people who don't want to believe it. So it's probably better if you want to look at the statistics, but you'll find that over the last 20 or 30 years that the numbers of people with guns in Japan's actually decreased, and the people hurt by guns, well, at 2006 I think it was 22 people were hurt, and then that was the peak, and it's gone down since then. So it averages about 2 a year, people that are killed by guns. So that's basically it. They have Airsoft here. That's one interesting difference. In Australia, realistic looking Airsoft guns require a permit because they look so real that you could use them for a hold up. But here you can walk into a second-hand shop and buy Airsoft pistols and rifles and things that look really real. We actually did a video on that a long time ago. There's a video somewhere on the channel showing those, and they look very, very real. And in Australia you need a permit. Here you don't, but I mean they're Airsoft. They're Airsoft. They just spit out tiny little plastic balls basically, so they're like a toy. So yeah, there's the story. Basically no guns, and you just never hear it. There's never any discussion about it. Occasionally there might be a story on TV about some Yakuza thing in Osaka or Tokyo or somewhere where there's been some gun involved occasionally, or a hold up or something where a gun's involved occasionally, but you rarely hear of it. And people often send us messages and say, what do Japanese people think about guns, and Japanese people like guns or want guns, or never heard it mentioned. Never heard, and the whole time I've lived here, I've never heard anybody talking about guns. The only time I've ever seen a gun, the police have guns, but they're really strict too apparently. The police have to, when they go to the range to practice, they're given a certain number of bullets, and they have to hand back the cartridges when they're finished to show that everyone was accounted for. And apparently their training is one of the highest standards in the world as far as how regularly they have to train, how much they have to train with their firearms to keep their firearms. So you see policemen with guns, police officers with guns is quite normal here. They didn't used to actually. The police here used to avoid carrying their guns, but then 1946, when Japan was occupied by America, the Americans insisted that Japanese police carry guns, so they started carrying guns then. So the Japanese police have guns. But other than that, the only civilians I've ever seen here with guns has been a couple of guys. I live in the countryside, so keep in mind, we live in the countryside here and still never see guns or hear people talk about guns. There was just once, out in the rice fields, there was 2 guys with shotguns. So I guess they were going for crows or something like that to get rid of them, get rid of pests, And that's the only time I've ever seen guns the whole time I've been here. And of course the military, Japanese military, as we've discussed in another video, have all the normal guns that normal military do, but obviously only when they're at work, And that's the other thing too, Japanese police officers don't take their guns home. So even for the police, the rules here are really, really strict about the firearms. So it's good, it's really nice living in a society where you can walk around and you don't have to worry about guns. It's really good. So anyway, that was the answer to that. I hope that covered all the questions that we've been getting about the gun thing. Oh, that was the other part, the health and mental check that they do, and then they do a drug test. And then all those, so this is for the people that have guns. So all those tests they have to do every couple of years. So they have to go back to the testing place and do all the tests again, and they have to have the mental check and the health check and a drug test. That was the other thing. So, drugs are really rare in Japan anyway, but it's just another thing that they throw in on top just to make sure, So anyway, there it was. I hope you found that interesting. More videos coming soon.